Hey everyone, in this video I'm just quickly doing a build inside the TRYX LUCA. For those of you that are interested in this case, GGF Events, Stuart, he did do a very good review on the case itself. I had the case since Computex. Mine was a prototype, so it's a little bit not as polished as the one that he has on his channel. But I was just going to put something together because the case is coming out soon. But I figured I might as well just talk about this board and the corresponding GPU and some of the, I guess, the initial questions I saw when people were wondering how did I do the TUF BTF build. I posted a photo of it up here so you know what I'm talking about. In that one I had used the stealth block, which at that point wasn't heavily used yet. So most people didn't really understand how I was doing the water cooling, and I still don't think they're popular enough yet still. So I'm going to use it on this one as well, and I'll show you guys how that actually works out. But let's quickly just go over this ROG BTF board. This was released earlier this year, sometime around April, May. This one I did purchase myself, versus the TUF set, which was sent to me by ASUS. So now that Computex has passed, we see that there's a lot of cases that are supporting BTF, and rest assured guys, the backwards connector thing is not going away. It's actually going to be pushed even further moving forward. Seeing all the cases, all the other vendors jumping on it, MSI, ORS. While it's not it's not predominant at the moment, it doesn't mean that it won't be in the future. This board, if you'll notice, does have a Dark Hero aesthetic. However, it only has one full lane. The other one is an X4. And underneath this cover, I will show you guys, it has 4 M2 slots, and there's another M2 slot underneath, directly under the CPU. Now, this board comes in at $700, which is pretty expensive, but like I will tell you is that I don't think they made this many of them. While they had a lot of them on show at Computex, I believe that sooner or later you're going to be able to see whatever handful of these that are remaining be fire sold, because they didn't, at least to me, it didn't look like they sold all over the place that well. So, I mean, granted, the socket's also coming to an end, but you know, when these get fire sold, which I believe they will. I mean, I got mine at less than 500. I got mine, not 500. I'm sorry. I got mine less than the 700 initial price. But you know, rest assured. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Right now, I'm going to be using this slot simply because this slot right here is shared with this. So the moment you put an NVMe in here, you're going to cut this slot to X8, which is fine for like a 4080, I guess. But I'm going to be putting the only GPU that I feel corresponds to this board, which is the ROG 4090 Btf edition. Now, I also bought this. It was not sent to me. So I bought it because I saw it at Computex, and I saw some of the cases that prototype, etc. And you know, I did see an adapter for the 4090 that was being used. I mean, it's going to be available for all the TUF cards as well, but you know, there's going to be an adapter that will adapt this to a regular 16 pin for folks to use with a riser or whatever it may be. But obviously, this was also shown off at CES. It is the same cooler as the regular STRIX, but you do lose. There is no special treatment in terms of this part in the back plate. I think in future generations they'll probably address that. Obviously, like I said, this is not going away. But you know, why I bought this fairly late. I got it at a good deal, but I don't. Like I said, these two items, if you really look for them, you can probably get the both of them together for less than the cost of this GPU alone right now. If you look hard enough, I'll just put it that way. So you can get yourself a good deal to a certain extent. Right, so going back to the board, I will be putting a M2 right here. Right, so I'm just going to seal that back up. Actually, you know what? Let's just go around the rest of the board, because I might as well put the M2 in here. You'll notice that we have this cover. This is very much an aesthetic that is on the Extreme series. I think some of the older Maximus might have had something similar, but I don't remember, it was so long ago. But this is definitely a pull from the Extreme series. And you also notice that along the top, this heatsink is a little bit different. Normally we just get this portion. Right, so there's a slightly different design here. I think they try to do that to kind of give you the value given the price point. I think it's 100 more than the regular Hero, right? So we flip on to the back. Obviously, all the connectors are going to be on the back. Same goes. See, on the TUF, you had the option of plugging in 3 8-pins or the 16-pin. On this one, apparently, you only have the 16-pin as the choice, which is fine. This also means that be very wary of the case you choose for BTF support and the stock wires you plan to use with this. Because if you have, for example, I think the GT502, the ASUS BTF case, that case doesn't, while you could do it, it doesn't have enough of a space in the back for you to plug this in without bending the wire more than I would feel comfortable with. Obviously, that's not an issue in the BTF Hyperion, which is still available, which I don't have because I have enough Hyperions. Okay, but you get 2 USB 3s, 2 USB 2s, USB-C, and 8 RGB on top. So that's 3 ARGBs and 1 regular RGB and 1 dual 8-pin. But you know what? I just released, guys are gonna be seeing a video about this about the same time this video is out. But I just wanted to show you guys something. All right, so what I've just added to the table is the new X870E Hero. This board is not out yet. If you didn't watch my other video, you can see it here too. I just wanted to show you guys, like I was mentioning in this video, that they've stepped up the Hero IO tremendously. And this is an example of it. So here we have the USBs, right? 5 gigabit. And then we have Thunderbolt, 10 gigabit. And then we have some more 10 gigabit USBs, 1 2.5. And then we have our microphone, Wi-Fi 7, etc. Okay, and keep in mind, we had 2 USB 3s and 1 USB-C, okay? Now, this is the new Hero. You'll notice there's 2 USB-Cs, 2 USB 3s, and we're still keeping the 2 USB 2s as well. Then we come to the back. You get dual LAN ports, you get more USB-Cs, right? They're also USB 4 this time, and you get Wi-Fi 7, and you just take a look. I mean, they've really brought it up a notch, right? And this is also still a Hero. So I don't know if that's going to be a trend moving forward. I hope it is, but it definitely puts the Hero, kicking at a higher notch than it used to, right? And you get the back plate. I mean, the BTF doesn't have a back plate, which I feel is something they could have done. I feel like they could have made a back plate for it. It's not that they couldn't have, but I digress. So other than that, you do still get, funny enough, you still get a header in the front for a fan, which I guess is probably because for folks using the ROG Refusion, I guess that works. I don't remember if that existed on the TUF BTF. I have to take a look. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put M2 drive here, and then I'm gonna start installing the CPU, and I'm gonna show you guys how I do the stealth block. So cutting back, here I have essentially what are some of the components of the Bitspower stealth revo block. Okay, obviously this design originally came from Modding Cafe. Bitspower essentially licensed that kind of IP from him to kind of put this together. Now, the way this actually works is you have the traditional block. Obviously, this is available in AM5 as well. This is for Intel sockets, specifically LGA 1700. And the way it works is this part over here, you'll notice is actually there. You can, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but it's actually hollow inside, right? So what happens is when this part is screwed into here, and you have it on each corner, there's an O-ring here, if you don't notice. All right, so there's an O-ring. Now you guys might be wondering, if the water channel is so small, does it affect performance? The answer is no, it does not. Contrary to popular belief, the width of the tubing does not affect your cooling performance as much as people like to think. Okay, that would be the same thing saying as, oh, the water flowing through the jet plate would restrict all my water cooling performance. It's not the same concept, right? So you have the plate inside, and you'll notice that there's O-rings, and it kind of just runs into the channel, and it floods out, and it comes out to this channel, then it comes out on this side, Okay, so all the water is directed to go through the mounting posts. Okay, and then on this end, which is on the rear of the motherboard, you have this, there's an O-ring on the inside of these things. Okay, so, and this comes together like so. Obviously you're going to remove the factory socket, right? And then this kind of just pushes into place. Well, actually only goes this far, I'm sorry. The motherboard is in between here, right? And you have this on the back. And then you run your tubing through here or here or here or here. Obviously there's going to be an in or out. There's a dedicated in or out, right? So obviously this is going to be in, this is going to be out. Okay? Something like that. But yes, this is essentially how it works. Okay? And you hide your tubing, you do your runs in the back, and that's how you have this look in the front. Now, when you get these from Modding Cafe, he can make a custom cut cover for you. He can add a screen for you, whatever you want. But Bitspower only includes this and a peel. So if I peel it here, you guys can see. If I peel it, is there one? There's another layer in the front too as well, but it's just a magnetic cover to darken it. And it has ARGB, and it also is reflecting my camera. Okay, but that's the gist of it. So people that are wondering how this works, now you know. So what I'll do now is I'm going to install it onto this BTF board. Okay, I'm gonna go for the same look as I did with the TUF. I don't have as much time to do it as I did on the TUF, but the first stage is to remove the socket itself. So I'm gonna remove the socket, and then after I remove the socket, I'm going to put this contact frame into place, and then on the back I'm just going to merge it together, and I'll show you guys how it looks. So I've actually decided to record the install process. As you can see, I've removed the socket, okay? The socket latch, not the socket. But I drop in my 14700K. I don't want to use the 14900K simply because I don't have a spare at the moment. Okay, so you will get this contact frame. It has a sticker on the rear, which I've assembled. You can see I can peel it off, right? And you have these 4 bolts. There's keyed to only fit these square bolts. You will put them in like this. And this is where it's going to get tricky, because this is going to come into here. But as it's going into place here, that's not sitting as correct as I expect. Is it? No, I feel it's slightly off. But the reason it was slightly off is because this sticker backplate, you have to apply it extremely on point, okay? Because if it's off, that little millimeter or whatever you're off on the edges is going to then touch the socket here, and you're not going to be able to get it sit down fully, okay? I mean, it's not picture perfect. It's still 1 millimeter off, I think, but I think we should be okay. Not 1 millimeter, it's like 0.5 millimeter. We should be okay. Let's see. Yeah, that feels much better. Okay, so here comes the tricky part. The tricky part is now getting the rear bracket into place, this part, and screwing it in. Let's get it as flat as possible. So let me remove these. Obviously, keep in mind this is loose, so don't just pick up the board and fling it. I've done that before, and good thing I caught the chip though. But yeah, so get it as flat as you can. If you have a helper, that's even better. But nonetheless, okay. So let me figure out how, okay, so this is the same regardless of how you want to put it. There is an indentation here, so I think that's probably what we want to match. Hold on 1 second. The manual doesn't state anything about the indentation. So I'm going to, you know what, just to make sure it lines up perfectly. Yeah, okay, it lines up perfectly, so the indentation shouldn't matter. But let's just put it down here. So this is going to be a tricky part given my angle, guys. So I'm going to slide it down a little bit. You may not be able to see too well because I can't see. I think we're right there, right? Okay, so now I'm just going to use my other hand and grab the screws. I should grab the screws before that. Okay, so let me just try to find something to prop this up. All right, guys, I had to do that off camera. It was just too tricky to hold into place, line it up, etc., and being so far away from it. So once I get the back on, you want to make sure that this is flat and level, right? Otherwise, you're going to have contact issues, right? So make sure the CPU is in the right position, and you'll see the block is on the back, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're just going to put the posts in, okay? So just let me make sure these, you don't have to tighten like no tomorrow, because it only will tighten so much. but let's just make sure, you know, it's putting enough pressure down. Okay, so now we have the posts already installed, as you can see here, and I've decided to figure out how I want my in-out to go. I guess it doesn't really matter for me, but I think, you know what, I was just thinking of it as what's the best orientation to hide my wire, but I can't move that Bitspower logo. So I guess I will put it like so. All right, so the final step is just about getting the last part on, which is the retention clamps for the block itself. Not retention clamps, retention bolts. So I'm not sure what that's gonna be. I think that's what the guess the size here, guys. 1 second. That might be too big, right? Is that too big? Nope, it's too small. How about this? Nope. They don't include any Allen wrenches. All right, here we go. So we got the right size now. They don't include any of the wrenches or anything required. I need to just push down a little. Whoa, hold on. That is not seating as I like. So these are spring loaded, so they're gonna take some effort to push down. Okay, is that catching? Yeah, it's catching. Diagonal pattern. Okay. Catching. All right. So obviously, once you're done doing this, leak test the block. Do not assume that it won't leak, simply because we do have the posts, right? So leak test the block. Also, this one I have here was one of the first prototypes. So it looks to be, from the instructions, the installation process looks to be the same, but I do have a prototype, just so you guys know. Well, functioning close to final prototype. But I got this many months ago. So I will be using something like this on the AM5 version for that X870E I just showed you guys. So don't be surprised to see it there. I don't know, like some people are really into seeing tubes. I'm kind of a minimal tube guy. I don't like to see more tubes than necessary. I think that, you know, some people like to do the whole bendy tube thing with the spiral. I think that trend is kind of gone, right? It was kind of cool when people were finding ways to do that, and then they came out with tools to do that, so you can just bend it yourself easily with the tool. And it just kind of killed all the purpose of that, in my mind at least. Okay, so here's the stealth block. That is with the acrylic on. And let's see if I can peel this plastic. And then if you want to add a tinted window, what happened to the magnetics? All right, there you go. If you wanted a tinted window, that is aluminum, CNC aluminum with a nice little tinted window. You can always, you know, get some magnets. You can make your own, right? So, but I'm just gonna use this. I like the way it looks. Okay, so there's the stealth block complete. Now we just have to move the board into the case. Hey guys, just coming in here, just noticed this. For those of you that don't know what this is the motherboard tray for the LUCA TRYX. It is removable. And I'm trying to put the board in, and I noticed that this block on the back plus that is not going to work. It does fit through, but it's not at the right angle. So I'm going to have to do is I'm either going to have to find a way to put it back in afterwards, or I'm going to have to Dremel. Okay, but no matter what, it's going to happen. So, but just a FYI for those that like the revo block and then you want to get this case, this is not going to work out. I'm going to let them know in the future if they can just enlarge this. I don't see the reason why this is so small to begin with, but it is what it is. Okay, so we're at the back of the case. I've taken the door off. Since we last left off, I was trying to mount the water block onto the motherboard and then onto the tray. Okay, so swinging the drive door aside, I did have to cut the case quite a bit for this to work, which we'll tie into talking about this case in a second here. I just wanted to, let me see, and increase my brightness so everybody can see here. All right, so this is the back of the block as I've brought up before. The issue with this case is that the stock cutout on the motherboard tray is way too small and also not centered. But so I've had to enlarge it, but then the motherboard tray mounts onto another case, on the case back, I guess, inside, mid back, whatever you want to call it, which I've also had to cut because that mirrored the cutout on the back of the motherboard tray, which makes sense. So simple loop here. This is a Fantex, one of those Fantex R160s from a while back. It's got some bubbles and some foam because I was running some loop cleaner and it wasn't fleshed out all the way, I guess. Because that's why I see a little hint of green in there. It's from the loop cleaner. But anyway, because it's going to be taken apart soon, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I have my pump out, CPU in, CPU out to radiator, radiator back all the way to the pump in again. Right? Simple enough. This is the BTF board, like I was saying earlier. So all my connections are on the rear, including the 16 pin right here. Unlike the TUF BTF, you only have a 16 pin on the back. You do not have the 3x8s. If you guys don't know, I made a video on the TUF BTF before, and I'll put it somewhere in the description. Okay, so you have 60 millimeters from the back to the door. This area, not the rad area is more like 30, but here you have about 60, and that's very wide, so you can do a lot. Okay, so now I'm going to transition to talking about the case a little bit. Okay, so this, like I was saying, is 60 millimeters out. If they had just increased the depth by 2 millimeters, you could fit an SFX PSU in the back. Or you could just disassemble the SFX PSU, create a new shell for it, and then mount it, cut a hole. But that's called modding. That's not called standard support. So if they had just increased it by 2 millimeters, they could have fit, SFX on the back. Oh, you have to make a little cutout, you have SFX. Now that we're at the front of the case, let's kind of get into the case itself. First thing first, I've had this case since the end of Computex. It actually came on a plane back with me to United States. TRYX did give me the case at the end of Computex. It was not planned. It was kind of just like a spur of the moment thing. Like, do you want to take one back and give us some feedback? And I was like, yeah, sure. So, but I did transport this case from Computex back to the States on my own dime. So you can, given the cost of that, you can call me a customer. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to just quickly tell you what I like. I like the aesthetics. I like the build quality. I like the materials. I did watch Gamers Nexus review. What I'm going to say about that is he obviously received a case that has cosmetic issues and functional issues as a result of damage of some kind. Okay. GZF Events did a review on this case. He's got 2 of them. I know a couple other people who have them. Nobody has those cosmetic issues. I don't know why that is. Just stating a fact. Okay? Now, if a lot of folks are getting these cases with cosmetic issues, then it becomes a trend, then it becomes a problem. There's nothing wrong with the packaging. It's extremely standard. Any other case in this price bracket comes with the same type of foam, etc. It's literally just box and foam and packaging, right? That's not anything different, okay? Now, moving on from, okay, one more thing. I feel what he should have done is got a replacement, reviewed that, then refer back to the fact that he had received one with damage, and maybe that may be a trend, maybe that may not be. It's really hard to do a review on something that's damaged. I think we can all assess that, right? It's hard to say. I mean, you wouldn't review a damaged car. You wouldn't review a damaged phone. It's just the way I see it. All right. So you can think of it what you may. That's just how I feel. All right. So now on to what I don't like. Okay. So we talked about the SFX as a missed opportunity. I don't like that on the rear. What else? This PSU cover is too short. It should be a little bit longer. This is an 850 watt. You can use custom cables. Some of the newer ATX 3.0s, they're short. You can use custom cables. But if I have like I don't know, slightly longer PSU that say comes to here, I'm gonna have to end up using stock PSU wires that are individually sleeved, not ribbon cables. If I was using ribbon cables, I'd have a problem, and I'd have to take this thing off, which will then just be extremely ugly looking. So this is too short. This gap, that's not enough. That's not enough for passing wires through unless you're using stock cables. All right, even ribbon cables like the old EVGA ones you get from some of the EVGA PSUs or the Corsair PSUs, that might even be a problem. That's too narrow. When you move the motherboard into the upper position and you put this on the bottom, you lose BTF support. Total oversight. This front door where the glass comes off, you can see this thing on the top. I'm gonna get to that in a second here. This glass thing that swings out, I don't find the function in it. You don't really need to swing this out at all. But the fact that it does swing out leads me to assume that this is removable as well, which it is, that you will be able to buy the airflow panel. They do have an airflow version, but then they don't plan to sell it separately, which is another, appears to be missed opportunity. Now this top filter cover, I don't understand why they couldn't do a removable filter cover for the top. Why do I have to wash this entire piece, right? If I want to clean my filter, that doesn't make sense to me. Okay, that's another thing. What else? The GPU support in the corner here, that's not removable. You can remove the arm, you can't remove the retention bracket that holds the arm. Therefore, limits the 420 radiator support on the side. You're going to use narrow 420 radiators. The EKWB one, forget it. You'd have to use like a heat killer or anything Hardware Labs based. All right, so that's another downer. Okay, so while this case does support 420s on the side and the bottom, and the top, if you relocate, it's technically really a 360 radiator case. Okay, because you have limitations. On the bottom, you can get away with, okay, on the bottom, you can fit a 420, but if it's an EK one, it might be too long. So there's a lot of just so close when it comes to things. Now you can say that, oh, well, this is the first time TRYX built a case. It's not bad for a first timer. Okay, you can say that. But at the same time, they have people from Cooler Master that worked on this case because they have folks from Cooler Master. And you can see that. So for example, these notches, right? The rear vents, those are all very Cooler Master-like items. And just because you have experience doesn't mean you necessarily brought only the good parts with you, right? You could bring the flaws with you as well. And I feel that they did some of that, right? There's a lot of Cooler Master cases where things are just so close, but not there, right? So I feel like what they should have done is they should have sent a few of these out to builders or modders, what do you call them, and not just tech press reviews. Because tech presses always do the same thing with the case. They do an air build, they do an AIO build. A standard one, which is, I guess, the mass of the market is going to use it for that case. But when you're selling a case at $230, $250 like this is, you're competing with cases like a Lanley Evo XL. And you don't have the functionality of a Lanley Evo XL. Because you don't have that kind of revisioning, right? And that's a missed opportunity. If you're going to come in at $250 or near it, then you need to offer as much as possible in that price bracket, right? And that's where having non-press folks work with you on building your case out is going to help you in the long run, which is something they didn't really seem to do here. Hopefully for next time, on a revision, they will. But you know, that's their prerogative, their scheduling. It is what it is. But yeah, so I would say if you like the case for the aesthetics and you plan to just do an air-cooled build or an AIO build, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a great case for that. Water cooling, not so much. But that's that. I do want to show you guys one more thing that I have that I don't think anybody else has, because I took the one back from Computex. is the, sorry if my camera's shaking here, is the PCIe bracket that's supposed to come out with this case at a later point. For those of you, this should look awfully familiar. This does just look just like the Cooler Master one, doesn't it? Right, just a redesign. Now, this part does slide out. It's tight on this prototype. See if we can get it out. 1 second here. Okay, so the bracket pulls out. All right, you can pull it out, you can slide it out. You can also slide this part out so you can adjust the GPU like this. Now, you'll notice that it slides out to accommodate, for example, if your case had, you know, PCI, the slits, and you don't want to cut it, you can pass a cable through this way. I mean, this is why this kind of extendable bracket exists, right? But this case doesn't have those slits. So you don't need this thing to slide out. It's just going to look funny, right? So you can see that if I rotate the case, we don't have those slits on the back here. It's totally open, so we didn't need that. And also, there's some, there's some welds here, but I don't see anything that this case is going to somehow support this into position, because it does fit, it does go in there. But once it goes in there, it sags because there's nothing supporting this end of it. This is a very well made bracket. It's also very heavy. When you put a GPU on here, all it's going to do is sag, and there's nothing supporting it. Unless they plan to release something new to go into that retention bracket for the stock ARM, this is not going to work too well. So, and it's also kind of weird flexing. But anyway, so even though this is kind of what they're showing on the website, I can tell you I don't see the final product looking anything like this, because it wouldn't make sense. This is more of a universal bracket rather than something specific for this case. Okay, so yeah, with that said, not a bad case. Could be a lot better for the price. Pretty much sums it up. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay safe and take care.